Meta just did something that almost never happens in tech. They made a 2-year-old headset more expensive. The Quest 3 just went up by $100, and depending on where you live, it gets even worse. I've been covering VR for years, so I want to walk you through why this might be the worst possible moment for Meta to raise prices, what the community is actually saying because it's not what I expected, and most importantly, whether you should still buy a Quest or if this is the worst time to do it. Here's what happened. As of April 19th, Meta raised the price of every Quest headset currently on sale. In the US, the Quest 3 512GB jumped from $499 to $599. That's a $100 hike. The Quest 3S 128GB goes from $299 to $349. The 3S 256GB goes from $399 to $449. In Europe, the Quest 3 is now €620. In the UK, £550. Canada went from $680 to $830 Canadian dollars. Australia jumped from $799 to $969 Australian dollars. Now, quick note, US prices don't include the tax, EU prices do, so the sticker looks worse here than it actually is. But if you really want to see where Meta cut the deepest, look at the percentage increase instead. Europe went up 13%, the UK 17%, Australia 21%, and Canada got the worst of it at 22%. Wherever you live, this hurts, and no Americans, you don't get to sit this one out. You got one of the worst hikes too at 20%. The refurbished line got hit too. The Reverb Quest 3 512 went from $449 to $549. The Reverb 3S 128GB went from $269 to $319. Only accessories kept their old prices. Meta's official reason? A global shortage of memory chips driven by AI servers eating up supply, which is true, by the way. Samsung, Microsoft, Sony, they've all been notching prices up this year, but Meta's increase is proportionally bigger than most, so the real question is, why now? Let me put this in perspective. Consumer electronics prices almost always go down over time. The Quest 3 is now more than 2.5 years old, so it should be getting cheaper, not more expensive. The last time Meta raised a Quest price mid-cycle was the Quest 2 in 2022, and that one got enough pushback that Meta quietly reversed it about a year later when the Quest 3 launched. This time, the hike is bigger and it's happening at a much more sensitive moment, because look at what Meta's been doing the last 6 months. They shut down multiple studios and they pulled Horizon Worlds, their own flagship platform, out of the Quest store. In a December internal memo, Meta told staff devices will be more premium in price going forward. Translation, the subsidies that made Quest 3S $299 are going away. When you stack all of that up, the RAM explanation starts to feel incomplete. It looks more like Meta is quietly stepping back from the subsidized hardware to grow the ecosystem strategy they've been running for years. And the timing is rough because Valve's Steam Frame is coming sometime this year. Valve originally said first half of 2026, then walked that back to just 2026, and honestly, with the same RAM shortage hitting them, it's probably going to land later in the year rather than sooner. I mean, it's Valve. Later is kind of the thing. But it's coming, and on paper, the Steam Frame has a better processor, more RAM, better displays, and eye tracking. So Meta raising prices right as the most credible competitor they've ever faced is about to launch. It's not exactly great timing. Now, here's the part that surprised me when I went to check. I expected the VR community to be furious, because every time Meta does something controversial, Reddit usually explodes, but it's not really there. The top comments aren't angry, they're conflicted. The most upvoted comment basically says, yeah, it sucks that prices are going up, but Quest is still the best value. And that pattern keeps repeating. You see people saying things like, it's still affordable for what you get, or honestly, it should probably cost more. The angry comments are there, but they're not dominating the conversation. Some of them are even getting downvoted. And over at the subreddit for actual Quest owners, the tone is even more measured. Most people are saying essentially, this was predictable. The Quest 3 launched at $650, so even at $600, it's still below launch price. I'm annoyed, but I get it. So this isn't outrage, it's something more uncomfortable, I think. People aren't defending Meta because they're happy, they're defending it because there's just nothing better right now. And that's a very different kind of win, because sure, Quest might still be the best value at 600, but selling best value at 600 is a much harder pitch than selling it at 300. But you know what's not a hard pitch? The sponsor of this part of the video. This is Books. And this is their Books Go 10.3 Gen 2 Lumi tablet, and it's been integrating into my daily workflow in a way I didn't expect. I've actually always wanted to try one of these, and yeah, I kind of fell in love with it because it feels a lot like writing on paper, just way smarter. The stylus feels like a pencil, it's super responsive and you can move notes around or split your screen when you need to. I've been using it for sketching ideas, planning videos, even journaling in the morning with a coffee, sometimes outside in full sunlight. That's the advantage of e-ink. There's no glare during the day, and now it also has a front light, which is new on this model, so at night you can still read comfortably without straining your eyes. It also runs Android, so I just downloaded everything I needed, Gmail, Discord, it's all there and it feels really slick. Now, it's not a fast tablet, it's slower, but that's the point, it's built for focused creative work. So if you want something that feels like paper, but still gives you that flexibility, this is actually really nice, the link is below. Okay, so the question you actually came here for, should you still buy a Quest right now? My answer depends entirely on what kind of user you are, so let me break it down into 4 groups. If you've never owned a VR headset and you just want to try this thing, the refurbished Quest 3S at around 320 is still the best entry point in VR. The new 3S at 350 is not too bad, but you have to take into account accessories. The Reverb still gives you the full Quest ecosystem, full color pass-through, and it's generally a great first headset. Now, if that stock dries up, and it might, refurbs always move fast after a price hike, I'd honestly just wait a bit. We'll know a lot more about Steam frame pricing by then. The new Quest 3 at 600 is a hard pill to swallow. The refurbished Quest 3 at 550 is meaningfully better value if you can grab one. But again, here's the thing people often forget, and this is important. The Quest 3 is not comfortable out of the box. I don't use stock, and almost nobody I know does, because the default strap is just okay for short sessions, but if you're planning to actually use it, you're probably going to end up buying a head strap with a battery. A better facial interface, maybe a case. Realistically, most people spend another 100 to 150 euros or dollars on accessories to make the Quest genuinely livable, because battery life out of the box is only around 2 to 2.5 hours, which doesn't cut it for a lot of people. Which means if you're being honest with yourself, the real cost of a Quest 3 in 2026 is closer to 700 or 750 once you account for the mods you're probably going to buy. And that puts it right in the range of what Steam frame is expected to cost. Now, to be fair, we don't know yet if Steam frame will need the same upgrades. It's also standalone, so don't assume it won't. But if PSVR is your main use case, I genuinely think you should wait for Steam frame. We don't have confirmed pricing yet. Estimates are anywhere from 700 to 1200, but you know, it's wireless, it has the eye tracking, it runs SteamOS natively, and it's purpose-built for the Steam library. If you really can't wait, PSVR 2 with the PC adapter is $400 now, plus about $60 for the adapter, and you get OLED displays, which still have some of the best contrasts in VR. Here's the one scenario where Quest 3 still wins, clearly. Steam frame's pass-through is monochrome only, which is a massive miss. If you care about MR, AR games, virtual desktop overlays in your real room, that kind of thing, Quest 3 is still the only sensible answer, especially if you're on a budget. And honestly, for that use case, I would just grab a refurbished Quest 3 at 550 and not overthink it too much, but you might want to wait for Quest 4 as well. But let me zoom out for a second, because I think this moment is bigger than one price hike. For the last few years, Meta has been the default answer for which VR headset should I buy, and a big part of why was price. The Quest 3S at $299 was the closest VR has ever come to genuine mass market accessibility. That era might be over. Third, and this is good news for us, Valve actually has a shot now. 3 months ago, Steam Frame was the enthusiast alternative. Now, if it lands under $800, it's genuinely competitive with the Quest 3 once you factor in accessories. And that's real competition, which is how we win. And here's the wild card. Meta actually reversed the 2022 Quest 2 price hike about a year later, so it could happen again. If sales slow or competition hits, a quiet price drop later this year isn't impossible. And fourth, what does Quest 4 even cost now? If Quest 3 is $599 this late into its life and Meta is pulling back on subsidies, Quest 4 could easily launch at $799 or more. And at that point, it starts to sound a lot less like people's VR headset and a lot more like an enthusiast device. And that's why this price hike matters more than it looks. Now, we don't actually know when Quest 4 is releasing, but if it does, it could be this year, and it's usually around Meta Connect, which usually happens around October. So it might be worth the wait for that as well. Now, I genuinely love to know what you're going to do. Are you still buying a Quest now, waiting for Steam Frame, jumping to PSVR 2, or sitting this generation out entirely? Let me know in the comments, I read them. If you want more XR news, VR hardware reviews, and comparisons, I've got a lot more coming. I'll see you in the next one.